Good afternoon, everyone. Today's FTD Mercury Point of Sale How-To webinar topic is Mercury Administration Features. This free webinar is available to all FTD members, and you can watch past webinars on demand on our YouTube channel, FTD Mercury Network. FTD Training and Implementation Specialist, Jennifer Toliau, will be leading today's webinar. She has spent the last 14 years as an installer and trainer for FTD. During this webinar, Jennifer will go through Mercury Administration in the point of sale to help you set up your default settings. You will learn how to add employees and set their permissions, how to create abbreviation and send to codes, and how to use your invoices to market your shop. At the end of each section, we will stop for questions, which you can simply type it in the question box on the upper right side of your screen. So without further ado, I would like to turn the call over to Jen to begin the presentation. Jennifer.
Thank you, Emily, for your kind introduction. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for this afternoon's webinar. Today, we will be going over Mercury Administration, which is the back end that sets the default values in your Mercury system. In order to do this, you'll have to have admin rights and window access enabled in your Mercury Administration. And since we are dealing with admin settings, you can only access this through the server. I'll dial into my test box so you can see as I go through all of the features for Merc Admin. So you could get into the administration in two ways. You can click, if you're on your desktop, you can click on Mercury Administration icon on the desktop. You double click it and you type in your login name and password. Again, you should have admin settings set for yourself or for the manager for your store to be able to do this. And this will open up Mercury Administration. If you're already in Mercury, you can also do this under Tools, Mercury Administration. So I'll expand all of these folders so we can go over a few of them in each folder that we go in that I open here. So the first one is House Accounts. This is where you set your defaults for your future house account, accounts, and it is where you can put your monthly and billing cycle. You can set all of this up for future house accounts. If this one is already set, the customers that you have currently won't be changed unless you change it individually. I want to recommend you changing the default payment on here to be instead of house to be credit, so that when you're taking the order under payments, credit card will be the default payment instead of house. That way you can get your customers to pay with their credit card instead of putting it on their house accounts. Remember, you're not a bank and everybody has a credit card they can use. So make sure you change that to credit. So this is where you'll be able to see it when you're putting an order in under payment. If you have a house account, generally the house account type is house. This will change to credit if you have your house account default payment to be credit instead. Another thing to pay attention to is this balance forward and open item accounting. Balance forward is basically how we treat our own credit cards. So you pay off what you can, and then there's a remaining balance that you can pay later. For most businesses, they operate by paying per invoice that you send them. So you'd have to change that to open item. Again, you can change this individually per customer that you enter, and if there's already house accounts in your system, you can change this. You'd have to change it individually, and you can't do it universally. Now, anytime you make a change, you want to click on Apply, and that will apply the changes to any future house accounts. Another thing that you should be able to change in here, or you should change when it changes, is your tax codes and your sales tax amounts. Sometimes it goes up and sometimes it goes down. So anytime local and state taxes change, this is where you would do it. For Canada, this may change yearly, and you'll have several different types of sales tax in here that you'd have to change yearly as well. POS setting, it's one of the most underutilized items that we offer in Mercury. At the bottom of the receipt, you probably have thank you, or please come again, or we appreciate your business. This is where you can change the bottom of the receipt basically as a coupon or a marketing tool. Just like some Starbucks places where they use their receipt to get the customers to come into the store in the afternoon, you can do the same thing. So you can put in here, come in and save 10% off of your next floral carryout purchase. You'd want to do flowers only because you know how to play with the flowers, with the price of your flowers. So make sure it's for your next floral carryout purchase. You could put that in here. 10% isn't anything. You can take out a flower and put a filler. The value looks the same, but that's 10%. So you could definitely use your receipt as a marketing tool for your shop. Under communication and emails, this is where you would set your reply to email addresses. So if you have, if you change and you want people to email you when they have a question regarding their order or anything like that, this is where you would change your reply to email address. And next month, we'll be going over how to create these email templates. So stay tuned for that. This webinar will be on Wednesday, the 22nd of July. Any questions so far?
We do not have any questions yet, so I think you can go to the next section.
Okay. So under delivery, and another underutilized item is setting your priority codes. When you order from anywhere and you want an expedited shipping, just like Amazon, where you pay extra to expedite your shipping, you can do the same thing here. You can do a rush delivery and you can set your price for this item. And I set my rush delivery for $25. What that does is it includes that $25 into the price of your delivery. So if I were to, since I made changes, it says that, so I don't want to restart it for right now. So when you're selecting a zone, when you have a delivery and say it's Lakewood, and the delivery there is $10. Now, since I want it to be rushed, if I select the time detail as rush, that changes it now to $35. So it applied that $25 to that $10 delivery. So now my delivery price is set to $35. You could automatically set those by putting the prices here in delivery priority code. And again, you're basically taking an employee away from everything they're doing and making them process and deliver this order. And so they should have to pay for it, especially if that's all that one person is doing, is taking care of that order. So you could set that up here. So for delivery zones, if you don't have the delivery module, but you still want the system to set the prices for your delivery, you can definitely enter your own deliveries and delivery zones in Mercury in this location right here. You can put a zone name and a zip code. And when that zip code pops up in Mercury, it will automatically set the delivery price. So again, if you don't have the delivery module, you could still set your delivery zone and the prices on here as well. When you do that though, and when you manually enter it in through here, under delivery zone fee, you have to make sure that this delivery charge is checked. So that will automatically put the delivery price on your order. So that part, again, you can just, if you don't want to have the zip code in there, you can just put 000. And then you can just manually select that delivery zone in the order. And that will do the same thing. It will still put the delivery price of that in your system. Is there any questions for here?
No questions. And just as a reminder, you can type your questions in the upper right-hand box on the upper right-hand side of your screen.
Okay. Okay, employees. Now you can add new employees and set your window access based on their job function and under employees here. To add a new employee on this empty white spot on the right side, you right click new employee. And it's going to ask you, do you want to add a new employee? You say yes, and it brings out another person here. So you double click on that. This is where you would put in their name. You don't have to put their last name, just their name, unless you have 10 Johns. You put John A, B, C, D, whatever it may be. But you can give them a login name as well. So this is a login name for your employee to log into the Mercury system. For the password, passwords are case sensitive, so make sure you know what the password is with the correct case that you have or the capitalization. We recommend numbers just because it's it won't matter what case it is, so you just type in a number there. It could be one number, it could be 20. That's entirely up to you. Now I'll expand this so you can see all the buttons at the bottom. The job function is what's important here. So these job functions, it can be, admin has basically every setting that you have, anything that you want to click on. If you click on admin, you'll have access to everything. Each individual job function differs. And even within this, if you select designer for John, you can still give him access that doesn't necessarily pertain to his job function. So if you have like two different managers, one has reporting, can look at reports and the other one can, this is where you would be able to check those boxes. Now, when I said earlier about having admin settings, what I was talking about is when you go to your system administration, you should have Wings administration access here so that anybody who needs to have access to Mercury admin will be able to access it, even if they're a manager or whatever it is. Giving them access to that will let them have access to this portion of Mercury administration. So once you set who the designer or who the job function is or what their job function is here, make sure you click on apply, and that will add John into my list in Mercury. Now there's going to be times where you're going to have to clean up your employees, and what you do is you click on who it is on the left side, and there is a button at the bottom that says terminate. This is where you'll be able to terminate employees, and I'll put the termination date as of today. And you click on terminate, and are you sure you want to terminate this employee? Yes. So by doing that, with their login name and password, this employee Nancy won't be able to log into Mercury at all. But if she does come back, you'll have seasonal employees who come back, every season. What you can do also is you can actually double click on them, they're X'd out, and you click on activate. That will activate that employee so they can log back into Mercury whenever they want. The reason why you can't completely delete these customers and that they stay around just with an X on it is because there's an order attached to their name. So every order that you have has an employee name on it. This person has an employee, has orders attached to their name, so you can't delete that. Any questions on employees?
No questions at this time.
Okay. So Another shortcut way, which ties to the employees, is this window access. So right now I have admin, everything is checked here for admin. If I break it down to clerks, what should clerks be able to do? And you can actually give them access here. This will be what populates the employee information and employee job function category. So if you go to, employees, this will populate whatever is in here. So these two go hand in hand. If you change the window access in here and you select the window access in the employee information, this is what they'll be able to have access to. So this is a universal change. So I would set this up before you select what their job function is when you're creating the employee itself to apply these changes. Okay. Under store general settings, the important part of this would be this middle section where it says auto forward and no auto forwarding. You know how important it is when you're wiring out an order and the filling shop who's supposed to process these orders can't do it. How do you want the other shop to proceed? Do you want them to forward it to another shop? Or do you want that order to be rejected where it goes back to you and then you get to decide what happens with that order? So by clicking auto forward, any outgoing orders the other shop will be able to forward to, or no auto forwarding, which goes back to you. So you decide what happens here when you're putting an order by checking whatever box you choose here. When you're wiring out, this part will be either checked or not checked when you're wiring out, where it says no auto forwarding on the order itself. That's one of the important parts of especially wiring out orders. Under store settings, just like the point of sale where you have that bottom of the receipt to market to your employee, to market to your customers to come back in, this would be to your recipients, right? So under here, under this store guarantee, you can basically turn this portion of that store guarantee into a coupon. Your recipient isn't your customer until they physically come or until they order from you, right? So giving them an incentive to come to your store and order from you is something that you want them to do anyway, right? So especially if they're getting your flowers, they know your work. You want them to order from you if they like what they see. So this is where you would change this into a coupon. Again, make sure it's for the price of your flowers only, and it's only for local orders. Don't put it for any other product because hard goods, you can't really play with the price of, and then when you wire out, you're at a loss on that end. So make sure it's only for flowers and local delivery orders. You can say, we appreciate you, or we value you as a customer. Please come into our store and receive 10% off of your next floral or local delivery purchase. So you can set that in this box here. This will print out on the 4-part card at the bottom right or the bottom left. Unfortunately, for those people who have trifolds, you won't be able to see this at all. Another thing that you can change here is this card font here. You could change the card font universally by selecting a font type in here. And any clients that you have at the store will default to that same card font, but just make sure it's readable. So, and it's big enough. You don't want it to be really big where your system will automatically say it's your card message is too big. You want to be around at least a 12 or a 14 on this so people can still see it. But make sure you choose a font that people can easily read. Any questions on that?
I do have one question from Sam asking, what happens if I make a change and it doesn't apply? What do I need to do?
Okay, good question. So like when I made a change and I clicked apply, you saw a message that says close down Mercury. So if it says that, you'd have to physically close down Mercury. I would close all of this down and then I would go back in. Now, if it has to do with taxes or anything that has to deal with money, what you would have to do is, I'll X out of here. You would have to go to FTD shutdown and start up. So you do a FTD shutdown first, it'll close everything in the Mercury, and then you click on startup just to start everything back up, and all of your changes will get applied. Another way of doing it would be just to reboot your computer. It takes a little bit longer, but all of your changes will be applied universally. On the other clients though, if you have more than one computer that runs Mercury, you'd have to close Mercury down on all of those computers and then pull it back up. Okay, does that answer your question?
I'll let you know if there's a follow-up.
Okay, so I'll go back in and log back in, and it'll bring me back to the order and Merc admin. So from here, I think we have abbreviation codes. Okay, so system abbreviation codes is where you would put your send to code or your card messages. I'll maximize this so you can see it. So there's already preset codes in there like happy birthday, happy Mother's Day. All of those codes are already in Mercury, right? Happy holidays. You can write your own code, especially if you have a business that has a really, really long saying. You can put their own card message in here, so it'll be a shortcut for you. Or you can put addresses, company addresses and phone numbers in here as well. If you deliver to them several times a week, you definitely don't want to have to re-enter those every single time. I would put it in here as a shortcut code. Once it's in here, in Mercury, when you're putting an order in, those abbreviation codes pop up in the recipient address information and the card message. So if you know what those codes are, great. If you don't, if you're under the address here, press F12 key, and it'll tell you there's a little bar that pops up and says press F12. And this will show you the abbreviation codes that's in our system right now. So you don't have to retype it. You can press F12, select a company, and it will automatically put all that information in here. So if you really don't want to type much, I would preset everything in Mercury admin under abbreviation codes. Just like the address field here where you can press F12, you can do the same thing for the card message. See, there's a sign that says abbreviation code, press F12, you press F12, and here's the sayings. Let me click on there first. So again, if you have a company that likes to say really wordy greetings for their orders, you could definitely put one for them. And see, I just click on it and there it is. I don't have to type so much. This is where you would be able to do that. When you put a code, it maxes out at 5 characters. To enter a new code or to change a code, you look for it, you update, you apply. To add a code, you type in whatever the code is, you click add, and you click apply. And that next time you open up Mercury order entry, these codes will pop up in there in that list that I showed you. PaidinOut Types is another one that I will go through. So basically it's using your cash register as petty cash. So if you buy lunch on Mother's Day, for example, and you buy pizza and you take $20 out of the till, you have to let your register know that that's what you're taking money out for. Then make sure you put business meal as your point of sale. For your point of sale. So when you're on point of sale, I'll go here. These PaidinOut types will be in here. So let me log in and you'll see So these PaidinOut types will be here. So by doing this, when you count your till at the end of the night, you'll be short, $30 for a business meal. And when you look at your reports, you'll be zeroed out and you'll be balancing out at the end of the night. There's some preset ones in there, but you can definitely add your own in this list. Another one I kind of skipped over is product category. A lot of people just leave the system the way it is. There's preset ones in here. Some people add miscellaneous as a product category. Try not to do that, because when you do reports, miscellaneous is so broad that you don't know what it is, whether it's a plant or a balloon or an arrangement. So but I would add like gift items in there. So you could click on and add gifts to your system. So you can put like all the candles and jewelry and all of that that's in your system that you want to add in there. Another one would be consignment or jewelry or things like that would have each product go into those categories instead of a general other or miscellaneous items. So I would definitely add what you sell and what you want to keep track of in this list. Any questions?
We do have two questions.
Okay.
So the first one comes from Andrea asking if you can have a PO number on each order for a certain company. So like right now they have to type it in, that PO each time in the ordered by box.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what she's asking, and Andrea, you can chime in again, but that if they have it's a reoccurring PO for that particular account.
That would be the only place we have it set in Mercury. There's really no other field to put PO. That's why we do put those PO numbers under this ordered by category.
Okay. Yeah, she's looking to the way it's a reoccurring one, so they don't have to key it in each time.
Okay. You can also, I guess, put it in with their customer name, but that would be, it will print out on everything that has their customer name with a PO number on it.
Okay. The other question is, how many abbreviation or send to codes can I enter?
You could enter as much as you want, but the more you put in, the harder you don't want to spend an hour trying to look for the exact abbreviation. So I would limit that. See, like here, if there was more, there'd be a box here that'll say more, but I would do it to say the last, the 10 most or 20 most popular places that you go to all the time. There is no limit to the number of send to codes or abbreviation codes you want to put into your system. Okay.
The questions we have for right now. So again, a reminder to those of you who are listening, you can simply type your question in the box in the upper right side of your screen.
Okay. So for printers, the main one to look at when you're doing your printer is the form alignment here. So when you get pre-printed paper from John Henry or whatever company you use to get your pre-printed paper, you can remove your name from the top left of the printout for your invoices by just clicking none here. Sometimes people don't know that, so they have the pre-printed cards and then have the Mercury print the address as well. But you can definitely remove your name on that. Also, this is where you would move your shop information if you have those windowed envelopes so that it fits in the windowed envelopes. You could move it to the left, to the right, up and down by just picking the moving these bars around basically moves up or down or sideways your address information. So this side is for statements and this side is for invoices. Okay, default print form. This is where you get to decide what you want to print out. Do you want to print out legal invoices or worksheets by putting a check or putting a number on what you're printing out? For worksheets, if it's an FTD codified item, the recipe will be printed out on the top portion of your invoices. For invoices, it'll actually have an invoice that you could basically mail after you're done with the order. So instead of waiting until the end of the month to run your statements, you're mailing it right away. It's fresh on the customer's mind. They're more likely to pay for it sooner rather than later, instead of waiting until the end of the month to send out your statements and then having another 30 days for them to pay for it. So you're basically out of that payment for like 2 months. So this will help you with your cash flow if that's what you want to do. So just check which one you want to do. You could play around with it, see what you want to, whether you want to use this billing invoice legal or billing invoice letter. So, or worksheet legal or worksheet letter. Okay. And then the last thing we're going to go over is this automatic order processing. A lot of people have asked about it. It's basically your system can automatically process these your orders that come in via this message center. And once that order message prints out a few minutes later, the invoice or the worksheet will print out for that order. So you don't have to go to your message center. You don't have to go to your message center, look up the order, select it, process it here, go to payment, complete it. By turning on this automatic order processing, the system will automatically process those orders for you. Now, there are a few things that you have to be aware of when you want to use this. First thing is you have to have a license key, and it has to be enabled for you to use this. You have to run credit cards through FTD. You also have to have delivery module with your delivery zones all set, because it will check for address verification. If addresses are not incorrect, the zone won't populate, and the zone is what the price depends on. So then the order will be thrown back into your message center if it can't process it. So those three things need to happen. On holidays, it's great. Your system will take care of most of the orders if you've set your delivery prices and everything is all set. The only problem is if there's any grammatical errors on the card message, or the address doesn't pop in correctly, and the system can't verify it, it'll throw it all back into that message center. And also, it sometimes can take up to a few minutes for the second paperwork with the invoice to print out. So if it's faster for you to just go through message center and do it yourself, then great. If you want to utilize this, you can do that as well. All right, so that is it. Any questions on automatic order processing?
Well, we have two questions, and one of them goes back to printing. It's what's the typical setting for the forms?
So the typical settings for the forms is if you go to form format, here you can basically set what you'll be able to see. Usually we use the legal invoices. Most of the shops use the legal invoices just because they just want one printout with everything in it, right? So we either use the billing invoice or this worksheet. Depending on which one you want to use for your shop, you can turn on and off certain things from printing on those invoices. So like for a card message, if you want to have your store name at the bottom of one of the 4-part cards, you could turn on store name here. You can actually rotate part of that card to go 90 degrees, and it does look weird. So you can try to print one out and see if you like it. If you don't, uncheck that, and you'll be able to play with that as well. But basically on this, you get to decide what you want to see on those forms. But I will have to tell you though, for any invoice, for invoices and worksheets, make sure under florist info, everything in here is unchecked, because what happens is if your customer wanted a receipt or an invoice sent to them, this information will be on that invoice. And if they see, like if it was to be wired out, for example, and they'll be able to see the wire out information that who you sent it to, they may not go back to you. They may just contact the other florist themselves. So make sure you don't put any check mark here. I would put the order number so you can look up this, the incoming orders through by having that Mercury order number there.
And then in regards to what's the typical setting then regarding like in the form alignment?
So the form alignment, you can just go to the statement defaults. So, or the restore invoice defaults, that will just set it to where you want it to be. I would print out an invoice, put it in the envelope and see where it stands. If it needs to be moved lower or higher, I would move it here so that any other invoices or any other statements you run can be in those little windows for your envelopes. I think the one we had, I think what we did when we said to restore invoice defaults is basically whatever we get at the store, somebody tried it and they actually set it correctly, so it does fall in those envelope categories. But sometimes those envelopes differ, so you can definitely move it yourself.
Okay, great. We got a couple more questions. So if Willie wants to know if the delivery address is the same as the customer's address. Is there a quick key for it so you won't have to type out the address again?
Yes. Okay. So let's go look up a random customer. There's a lot of Toms, so here's Tom. Okay, Tom wants to buy his wife an arrangement, and they live in the same address. Typing the word same in this address will pull up his information and throws it down here. Is that
cool?
So that's your answer. So it's same, typing the word same.
Great, okay.
So, and you can type in, and if you type in same here under recipient name, it pulls everything, including the customer name, down here under recipients.
Great shortcut. All right. There is, let's see, another question from Lance. Is there a way to have the sender's email printed on the invoice header?
Say that again.
Is there a way to have the sender's email printed on the invoice header?
For the invoice header, no, not for the invoices. When you're talking about invoices here, let's see, or form format. It doesn't have it. It would be under sold to, and they only have address and phone number. The only way you can have that, or you can put it, you could always put it in ordered by. So it says ordered by, which puts it here. If you put the email address here under ordered by, it'll have the email customer's address or email address. But the problem is it's not under their customer information as an email address. So if you want to put it in both locations so you have the email address, you can, but putting it under ordered by doesn't do anything for that email. that it?
Okay, I think, let's see, one last question. Is there a way to not have either deliver or carry out on invoices?
For carryouts, and okay, so the default, there's always default zones in here. One will always be NA, which is the carryout one. And for, if you don't want to use local, so a carryout is, NA is basically somebody grabs something and goes. There's no zone for that. So that's why it's NA. If you want to change your delivery to not have local, the word locals, you'd have to just make sure you uncheck the active. So that will disactivate that local category or that local zone. You can't again, if you can't delete a zone when there's orders attached to it, just like you can't delete an employee because they're attached to orders. But you can basically deactivate that local zone so it doesn't pop up and you can't choose it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, let's see, I think we are good. All right, do you have time for one more question?
Sure.
Okay, Beverly wants to know, is there a way to get a copy of each invoice email at the same time as the statement without going back to order history to email each invoice individually again?
No, there's no report for it at this point. When you're setting up your house accounts, you can put in there that you want to have or want to email statements. And when you're putting a customer in there, you can always make sure that an invoice print or gets sent to them by putting invoice and then selecting their email address that if you create an email address, put an email address here, and then selecting their email address. So once an order gets completed, an invoice gets sent to the customer. As far as emailing, so you can email out statements, no problem. You can email out invoices individually like this also, but there's no report that will say which email it's going to or which customer got emailed. Anything. You can print out an aging report that will show you who's going to be on that list that you're going to send statements to, but basically it doesn't have their email address on that. So does that make sense?
Great. Yeah, I think that concludes our questions. Lots of great questions today. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Okay.
And I know if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to Mercury support. This session, this webinar will be available on demand on our YouTube channel, as well as some of the other materials are on ftdi.com. We want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. And if you missed a portion of this or you want to view it again, you can go to our YouTube channel at FTD Mercury Network. Our next Mercury POS how-to webinar is about email marketing, and it is scheduled for Wednesday, July 22nd. So mark your calendar. This webinar, you will learn how to create your own email templates in your point of sale and how to generate links to your website. You'll also learn how to create your own order and delivery confirmation emails to communicate with your customer on the order. Registration is available now at ftdi.com, so be sure to register as soon as possible. Again, thank you, Jennifer, for sharing lots of great information. And this concludes today's webinar on Mercury Point of Sale Administration. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.